Hey,
Okay.
Ronelle.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, Ashley.
Awesome. Happy summer. What have you been up to?
So far, nothing exciting. Simply finishing up what I didn't get done at the end of the school year.
Yeah, I see you're still in your classroom.
I'm up here a lot trying to get things done, like every teacher is. Those last things on the list that you just didn't get done in time. So it's always
Yeah, it always comes so abruptly, and you have all these things going on and banquet, and you have to do inventory and concerts.
yeah,
It's so much. Oh,
everything's due.
yeah, I know. And is there, this is totally off topic and not related to what we're going to talk about at all today.
Okay.
Do you get to go into your classroom at whenever?
It just depends. The school is under a lot of construction this year.
Oh.
And so, depending on when things are happening in the building and in our end of the building, we may or may not get to come in. So, there's a lot of unknowns this year. So, but in normal timeframes when they're not under construction or doing improvements, then we have some capability to come in and get things done if we need to. And then the building is usually closed for a certain amount of time where they're just cleaning, and
Right.
then they open it back up. So I have a key, so I just make sure it's okay and I come on in.
Cool. That's awesome. Well, I hope you take some time to have fun this summer.
That is the goal. There'll be some refilling of the bucket for sure. So I'm going to do some travel and see family that we haven't seen, since COVID hit. So
Are you going to Arizona?
we're going to go to New Mexico and to Ohio.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah.
Hey, awesome. Speaking of Arizona, I know that's kind of where you're from.
Mhm.
But I would love if you would share with our audience just a little bit about your background and what your dance training was, what brought you to Texas, kind of what's led you up to this point, and also currently what you do.
Okay. Well, I was born in Michigan in Pontiac. So I ended up living just outside of Detroit. And I started dancing when I was 4. And the reason I started is because my mom, her name is Gloria, my mom came in and said, Ronelle, do you want to take tap dance lessons? And I was like, yes. I had no idea what it was. But my mom had wanted to be a dancer when she was little. And when she approached her parents about it, they got her accordion lessons. So she never got to dance when she was little. It was something that my grandmother had learned. So they taught her the accordion. And so as an adult, my mom, I think, was like, I'm going to do this. So, so she and I went, and I loved it. I took tap, and then I joined ballet, and then I worked up to point and started point when I was about 12. And so that was all. I really liked it. It was my escape. It was, my pleasure point. It was like, this is the thing that I love. And so my family was in turmoil and my parents were getting divorced. And so when they got divorced, my mother and myself and my brother moved to Arizona. So that's the Arizona connection.
Gotcha.
And up until that point, dance was therapeutic for me in many ways. I was creating and moving, and it kept me healthy. So moving to Arizona was a really difficult transition. Just challenging all around, new friends, new everything, and my grandparents were there, and so they helped us. And my mom was a single mom for a long time, so there was really no money for lessons. I didn't take any classes outside of school, so there's a period of time where I didn't really dance in any official capacity. And then I got to middle school and they had a dance class. And I was like, yes, okay, now we're talking. So I signed up for dance in ninth grade and I took dance with Debbie Ball. She was the dance teacher. I think she was a first year dance teacher that year. And I took dance there, and then I took dance in high school. And so all of my classes were done through public school. In both middle school and high school, I was a pom-pom girl,
I love it.
like drill team.
Yes.
Yeah, but Arizona pom pom. And then I was also in the dance classes. And then in high school, they had a company. So I was able to do my pom line. And then I was also able to do company in high school. And as I got towards graduation, I'm like, you know what? This was the thing that kept me in school. This was the thing that kept me going. I wasn't as interested in the other classes. I knew I needed them to graduate, but it was dance. It was dance, the whole, everything about it, doing football games, doing concerts. So when I graduated, I went to Arizona State and they had just an amazing dance education program.
Them devils.
Yeah, so I was a Sun Devil. I did their dance line for 1 year, and that was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Um, and that those experiences of dancing in a spirit capacity, with entertainment. I mean, man, it's just fun. It
It
was so
looks like
much
so much
fun.
fun. If I could go back and have another life and try it again, I would love to go that route just to see.
Yeah, yeah. So for me, that was, again, it was part of my like joy and my therapy, right? Part of my identity. And then the ASU program was the first time I was introduced to modern dance. So I went all that time doing jazz and ballet, and I knew tap, but I didn't know modern dance. So that was a real shock to the system. And I remember the dancers there saying, Ronelle, you'll either love it or you'll hate it. Like there's no middle for modern. And I was like, interesting. Okay. But I loved it. And it was a great outlet in terms of communication and movement as communication. But I was behind the curve. I hadn't done that. And so I really had to train. I really had to focus my energies on how do I create movement for movement's sake or for communication's sake versus just, cute moves, right? Just things that look good and that kind of feel good.
Mhm.
So creating for a different purpose was a huge growth explosion for me in college. But I loved it. I went all the way through the program and got my BFA in dance education from ASU. And then I landed my first, I did some interim time where I was doing some studio teaching. And then I did some like sunrise preschools. I did their dance classes there. And I also taught some after school programs for Mesa Public Schools. So I was teaching as much as I could and getting in front of, little small kiddos that are so much fun. And then I had my first men's class teaching after school at Mesa Public Schools. It was a boys hip hop class.
Oh, cool.
So that was really fun. And then I landed my first teaching position. It was at a performing arts high school in Phoenix.
Neat.
And yeah, that was great. I was there for several years, and then I went to Peoria High School and taught there. And then I met my husband.
Hmm.
And he wasn't my husband, of course, when I first met him, but we met at a wedding in Bisbee and dated and got engaged. And when we got married, he had been living here in Dallas. And so that was the uproot. That was the big catalyst to move here.
Yeah.
So yeah, I danced with a company in Arizona called the Movement Source. I loved that. That was a really great experience for performance and choreography. And then when I moved here, I wasn't sure where to start because I had to, get my certification in Texas. So I took some classes and got to know some people. And then I danced with Laura Speckles with Nova Dancing Company for a couple of years. And then I met Michelle Hamlin, and she was someone who actually has ties to Tucson, to the University of Arizona.
Okay.
One of my friends had said, you should look for her. She's in Dallas. And so when I found her, we met and, found a common thread in a lot of ways. And we started L Dance Works, which was a dance company that we ran together for 20 years.
Wow.
So that was cool. That was a really neat experience. And a study in the aging dancer, if I throw that out there, right?
Yeah, sure.
Because we started, everyone in the company was a graduate from college in some form or fashion. But then we all grew together for 20 years. So there were marriages and children and, you know, working through to the point where we're like, wow, my body doesn't feel quite as good as it used to. And so we stopped at 20, really enjoyed every moment, wanted to make sure that it all counted. Um, and so during that time, most of us were public school teachers. So I had done some teaching at Marsh Middle School and DISD. And then my friend who was in L Dance Works, her name is Jo. Jo was teaching here and she was moving and said, hey, I'm going to go. And I said, I really want your job
At Creekview?
at Creekview.
Okay.
So I interviewed here, and I didn't think I got the job. I was really nervous. I didn't get a phone call for a long time,
Hmm.
and I called Jo, and she said, "Gosh, I just don't think they've moved on it yet." And so right at the very end of the summer, I got a phone call that I was hired here, and I just finished my 18th year here at Creekview. So
Congrats. That's
thank
that's
you,
beautiful. Um,
thank you.
the time that you have to wait to hear back from an interview is just the worst.
It's oh,
It's
it's
the
yeah, it's
worst.
numbing.
It's like I equate it to kind of going on a first date and waiting for the boy to reach out and call you or text you or something. It is excruciating.
That's an excellent analogy.
Oh
Yeah,
man.
it was painful. I thought, oh, I didn't
Yeah.
get it. And I thought, okay, what am I going to do next? Because I had
Right.
already,
Kind of
planned on
crammed
kind of
into your
leaving my
head. Right. Oh my goodness. And
yeah.
I can't wait to dive into this next part of the conversation because anyone who doesn't know, which most of you probably don't, I student taught at Creekview and Ronelle was my mentor teacher and I absolutely loved it. I learned so much. And I would love for you to talk about kind of what you've cultivated in your 18 years at Creekview, and I don't know how you did all of that, what you're most proud of.
Oh, okay, let's see.
It's a lot, I know.
Well, let's see. So I had, fortunately, I had some teaching experience before I came here. And so Carrollton Farmers Branch was my third district that I had taught in. And there was just something about it, something about the fit, something about, and I had enjoyed all of my other experiences. So there was not really anything wrong anywhere else. But when I started here, I noticed that there was just a different level of support, kind of a slow and steady. And so when I first started here, we were teaching dance behind the bleachers in the gym.
Mhm.
And I had a cart. And so I would get on that elevator and come upstairs from my little office area with my cart, roll behind the bleachers in the gym and start teaching. Well, we had two teachers and two concurrent classes. And so I was teaching with Trudy Williams at the time.
Mhm.
And Trudy, so Trudy was teaching, in the gym, in the cafeteria. I mean, we were everywhere. And as you can imagine, that's not conducive to building a program when you're all over the place.
Right.
So I looked at what we needed and talked with Trudy about it. And then when I had come in, it was sort of because she was doing the drill team at the time, and I took over moving ground. It was sort of, expected that I would do some of the lead work on the dance department as a whole.
Mhm.
So I said, I think we're going to need a space. We need to start thinking about this because I really like it here, but it's not going to work with us rolling because if in PE they'd play hockey
Mhm.
and the little pucks would come sliding under
Oh
the
gosh.
under the
Can you
bleachers
imagine doing a
and
floor phrase and a puck just getting you in the head?
right. Right. And then, basketballs. Well, and then the noise, because there was no separative wall.
Yeah.
So we'd be playing music and they'd be in there bouncing basketballs and they were doing what they were supposed to be doing. So you couldn't be upset about it. but it just wasn't the right space.
Mhm.
So I put together a little proposal and I said, here, let's think about, what's really important about having a dance program and what are some of the things the dance program has accomplished and why we need a space. And so my format was to do little summer study articles or little articles that the administrators could take home. So I
Mhm.
was always writing sticky notes that said, hey, a little light reading for you for the summer. And
Mhm.
I'd put it in their mailbox, like at the end of the school year, or if there was a really good article that came in about the value of the arts and education, I
Mhm.
would copy it, and give it to everybody in fine arts and then make sure the administrators had it too. So it was a slow build of, hey, this is a really important program.
Mhm.
And so there are certain safety issues that we need to consider. And it took a total of 8 years, I believe. And so I just went back and forth with my cart, but they were looking at those materials and a bond was voted on and they got the dance studio into the bond. And so they said, we're going to build. And so we have 2 studios now where there was just, ground and trees in the front of the school that were an addition. And they're beautiful, sprung floors with, a
Plenty of
really
natural lighting. Yeah.
natural lighting, vaulted ceilings. So the sound is challenging sometimes, but they bought us Marley. They took care of us, and and I had a feeling, that that's the type of district that this was,
Mhm.
and so I just tried to stay patient, during that whole time frame. So we just, didn't complain, but pushed that cart everywhere. And Trudy and I did that, for years until they built the space. Now we're here and now we don't go anywhere else. We have to make ourselves leave, right? Because the
It's a
hallway,
beautiful space.
yeah, it is.
Yeah, I think as a student, I could put myself in the shoes of a student and totally find home in the dance wing.
Yeah.
There's something about it. And if you guys want to kind of see what it looks like, there's a video on our YouTube channel where there's a leadership workshop and we actually work with the Creekview Cheval. So if you want an idea of what the space looks like, that would be a good indicator. It's not like a specific tour video, but it takes place within that studio.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've painted murals and
Yes.
it's fun how you have it set up too, because as soon as the kids walk into the dance hallway, you and Carla are just right there in front of that gorgeous mural and you're saying hi and it's so fun.
Yeah. Well, and that stems from, thank you. That stems from me, knowing how important it was for me in high school. It
Mhm.
was the thing that got me through. And I truly believe that the work that we do in the dance classroom should be afforded to everyone.
Yes.
So I love studio work. I mean, there are some great things happening in studios and I know so many outstanding, studio teachers, but there are students who will never end up in a studio
Right.
and they either can't afford it or they don't understand what it is,
Mhm.
and so it needs to be made available to everyone. And so that's part of the lure and part of the love of public school is this is where the action is. So
Yeah.
these kids come in and oftentimes they've not had dance,
Right.
and so they come in and the whole experience is new for them. But we also have a place for those kids who do have training. We can take what they know already and push them to the next level.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of exciting things that happen here, but it's not a studio experience. So the students who are interested in that, they can take it a studio. That's awesome, but the opportunities here are just different. So but yeah, that we want them to feel welcome walking in, and getting them where they need to go and finding that motivation for what we're going to do. The thought of moving physically every day isn't easy for every student,
Right.
especially if they haven't come from a background where their family is movement based, just being walkers in the neighborhood or whatever that might be. Many of our kids are sedentary now, and that's simply
Oh
because
yeah.
there's
Video
video games
games,
and
cell phone.
this
Right.
past year being online. I mean, a lot of screens and a lot of sitting down. So sharing that energy for okay, this is what we're going to do, and it's going to be fun, and you're going to sweat, and you're going to love it, and providing that opportunity for everybody, and like giving them all equal access. And then for the kids who have a really strong interest in pursuing something deeper, then we've got 3 varsity companies here now. So Trudy went and taught at an elementary school, and that was a really cool, interesting experience. And so Carla Canamar Hardaway came in, and so she's been my counterpart now for the past, I think it's been 6 years.
Yeah.
Um,
Mhm.
6 years, yeah. And so so she and I align a lot on what's happening, and we spend a lot of time. It's interesting working with her because she came in with folkloric experience, having written a book,
Yeah.
um, folkloric dance,
He's a
and
cool one I'm gonna be talking to soon as well.
yeah.
Mhm.
But she was already established in a really different way than I was.
Mhm.
And so that connection with her has been exciting and fun and challenging because we can push each other, and okay, well, we should do this, and okay. And it's exciting to have someone understand that, like we both have the same kind of viewpoint for how things should be connected in our department.
Mhm.
And so Creekview has become over time a dance department where we have specialty forms. So we have the Cheval's Drill Team, and we have Moving Ground Dance Company, which is a modern based company, and we have a folklorico dance company. And those specialized experiences are available to any student who wants to audition. But then we also have dance 1 through 4, and we have men's class 1 through 4, and we have folklorico 1 through 4. So kids can come in and train and have fun, but we weight everything equally.
Mhm.
So if they want more, they can have more. But if they want to just come in and take class and have a light performance at some point, um, and not be super stressed about it, we've got that too. So we want to keep dance relevant in that it's for all people. We fight really hard the stereotypes about dance being simply for girls
Mhm.
and having dance be a feminine experience.
Mhm.
So that's a big one. That's a big cultural push that we have here at Creekview that we're fighting for. Um, and then we have the kids who want to study a cultural form of dance, and we have folklorico, and so we have this broad offering of things, a little bit of something for everybody, but the difference is that it's a little bit of something for everybody, so they can do everything if they want to.
Right.
So we have kids who are in drill team and company. We
Mhm.
have kids who are in folklorico and company.
Mhm.
So it's very exciting to see them try multiple forms of dance and to really push themselves if that's what they want to do, and not feel like one trumps the other.
Yeah.
And that's taken time for us to shape that and cultivate that here. But I'm proud of that. I think that we've got, like I said, for our community, we have a little bit of something for everybody. Like, okay, you want to dance? What do you want to do? Come on in.
Yeah.
We're going to get you in the right class and have a good time. So,
Good. It's
yeah.
certainly something you should be proud of. I would love to talk more about the men's class that you've cultivated. So, at what point did you figure out this needs to be its own class and its own thing?
Well, let's see. So I always had one boy in one class, or one boy in level 2 and one boy in level 3, but it was a very minimal amount of boys. And, they just were uncomfortable. They were uncomfortable as beginners
Yeah.
coming in and taking class with the girls. Now, if they had enough self confidence to do it and they hung around, there was a lot of social pressure from their peers that it wasn't cool for them to be in a dance class and be the only guy with all girls.
Right.
So we kind of constantly fought that. So Melissa Wesley, she was an administrator here at Creekview while during let's see, so men's classes forgive me for losing track of the number. It just starts to blend together. But I want to say men's class is about 9 years old now.
Okay.
And Melissa Wesley came to me one day and she said, Ronelle, I've got these boys and they are not involved in anything. And one of them likes to do the quinceañera dances.
Mm-hmm.
And but they won't take dance. They don't want to be in there with all the girls.
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, what can we do? What can you help me with? Because sometimes, you just you're given the package of what the program is, and
Mm-hmm.
there's no men's class listed in the course catalog. So there's a part of me that was going, is this something we can even do?
Mm-hmm.
And so she said, yeah, let's do it. Let's get all the boys in the same class. And so that first year that we were getting ready to have it, one of my duties was tardy hall. And so I was in tardy hall the same period every day.
Mm-hmm.
And there was this group of boys that were always in there. And I would say, what are you doing in here again? You need to be in my dance class next year. No, miss, I'm not going to be in your dance class next year. I'm like, come on, it's men's class. You should totally take it.
Mm-hmm.
And I recruited a couple of boys from tardy hall. And she got a few boys, and I had a real small group that first year. I think it was about 13. Many were seniors, and so they were kind of like, okay, we want to do this, but we're very skeptical.
Yeah.
And so that first year, I didn't really know what I was doing,
Mm-hmm.
And so I did a lot of, I used bribery and I used food as a way for them to try things.
The way to a man's heart is through his
Yeah.
stomach.
Yeah. Well, and it was new, and I thought I just want them to try it. Like I don't want them to fight me. So I would do silly things like I'd say, okay, so we're going to do ballet. No, I don't want to do ballet. I don't want to do ballet. Ballet makes you strong. Ballet is about, discipline and strength. It's about control.
Mm-hmm.
So let's try ballet for a week. And at the end of the week, I'll bring you guys donuts if you do a good job, but you can't prank it. You can't joke with it. You can't make fun of it while we do it. And they were like, okay. And so that first week they did it, and, they'd be sweating and
Mm-hmm.
they'd go, this is a lot harder than I thought. And I was like,
Very hard.
yeah, yeah. And so the first week I brought them donuts and I said, the other classes are all doing ballet for one more week. You guys up for it? Well, if you want to do it, I'll bring you pizza at the end of the week. And they would do it. So it was kind of like I had to reward them right away for trying those new things and kind of pushing them.
Yeah.
That was my first year. I don't do that really so much anymore. So we established it. I got a ton of people in. They tried it. A lot stayed. A lot couldn't get over the cultural stigma that came with boys being in dance. And so they'd do it for a year and then they'd leave.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have my boys who have stayed all 4 years, and it's on their schedule for all 4 years. At one point, I had this amazing group come in. I have not had the like in my career, but they were all so strong. And I said, you guys should really consider, auditioning for Moving Ground.
Was that the year that I student taught?
Did you have Zach and Miles and that?
Yes. Yes.
So
That
yeah, it was that
was
group with Michael Steed and Zach and
yes.
Braylon,
Oh my
and
gosh.
there were so many, Eric
Incredible
and
company. Mm-hmm.
Ben. I mean, and I know there were even more.
Mm-hmm.
They were, I think Freeman was in there one year, but
That was
they were
mm-hmm.
okay.
Yeah.
They were so strong in men's class, and they were choreographing all the time. So finding their voice was critical for them.
Yeah.
So I had them audition for Moving Ground, and the years that they were in Moving Ground, I had more boys than girls in the company. It was incredible.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a really interesting trend. Now it's gone the other way since it
Yeah.
started, and so now we're back to still fighting the cultural things. People know that it's here, and so we continue to okay, come on, let's get the guys in here, let's try this. But sometimes making those connections is difficult. And I think that's what the world of dance has experienced since, the dawn of time,
Mm-hmm.
in terms of putting everything into a format where boys can study with equal opportunity, like in a public setting.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be that hard, but it is. I went to a conference several years back for called Men in Dance Symposium, Bridging the Gap, and that was fascinating. So I just sat and listened. I thought about what I had done, and I've come full circle. So now that I've got the men's class, I teach it just like the girls' class, all the same curriculum. They try everything. I reward everybody the same. But the one thing that was really good about men's class was it reinvigorated my teaching.
Mm.
So that first year, I had to think I had to stop and rethink it. They didn't like the announcements. They didn't want to sit down. They wanted to get up and move right away. They didn't want to do any worksheets. Miss Eddings, we didn't sign up for dance for worksheets. Okay. So I just listened to everything. And if we did a movement they didn't like, they would say, Mrs. Eddings, you're robbing us of our masculinity.
Mm.
I'd be like, what? Tell me what? And they'd show me the movement and I'd go, oh, well, okay. So in this sport, and I tried to like tie it into something else where you would do the same movement,
Yeah.
and men would do that same movement too. And once we kind of like worked through all of that, those questions went away. So it was just the initial like shock factor. But
Mhm.
they had their own traditions. They didn't want to be in with the women.
Mhm.
They wanted their own thing, and that way they could work, they could make mistakes, and it was just in front of the guys, just in front of their peer group here. um, but I have some funny memories of that first group. They all did costumes just like the rest of the group after concert. So
Mhm.
and I'd be like, okay, so you gotta put these dresses in order, 1 through 20 goes like this. They have to hang on their own hangers, and I remember them standing there going, I'd go, okay, so do you need some help? And he'd go, yes, get over here and help me with these dresses. So it gave them an appreciation too, to a certain degree, for what their counterparts were doing, what they were wearing. Everybody started to understand each other a little bit better. We started seeing collaborations. And then that group graduated, and then I started over.
Mhm.
And so I'm in the start over. I'm back to a very small men's class. We have community-wise added an elementary program. So we have a fine arts academy.
Yes.
My son is in it. And so when those boys get here, I can't wait, because everyone takes dance at the elementary. We
Mhm.
just added dance in the middle school. So the boys are starting to come through. So I think in maybe 2 years, I'll start seeing those boys.
That's very
Um, yeah, so I have a lot of hope. And I continue to just work with administration and say, I really believe that this is the right thing, rather than mixing them in. And it doesn't work everywhere. We've had the other schools pilot it,
Mhm.
and we all kind of have the same issues. So we get together and talk and go, how can we get more guys in the door?
Yeah.
And it's a maturity thing, for some. For some, it's cultural. When I went and gave a little bit of information at the elementary school when we started the program, and talked about my son Cannon had also been in a studio. So he was the only boy. And so he had been taking classes and was familiar with some of the vocabulary. But from what I understand, there were some fathers who just said, my son is not taking a dance class.
Mhm. Mhm.
And they just kind of put their foot down, and they're like, well, but this is a fine arts academy and everybody takes dance. So just reminding and continuing to educate, dance is for people. It's not a gender specific activity. Dance is not pink. Dance is all colors, And so it's not pink, right? Because everybody thinks of ballet shoes and tutus and the feminine aspects of it, but it's everything. So that's a continual educational battle. We're just going to have to keep fighting and keep educating parents and children. But those kids are going to go on to have their own families, and hopefully they will remember their experiences and encourage their sons to be a part of it.
Yes, and I have faith and hope that, with this Generation Z, there's so much more accepting and open
Yeah.
about, what it means to be a man and what it means to kind of embrace your femininity, even if you are a male. And just because you are embracing your femininity,
Uh-huh.
doesn't take away from your masculinity. There's a balance for sure.
Mhm.
But I think it truly does take a strong man to kind of shed his ego a little bit and surrender to that side of him so that he can tap into his emotions and
Hmm.
express and all those things. So I have hope that these kids coming up will be more embracing of that, especially as they go on to have kids of their own and raise
Hmm.
little boys. Um, but that's really interesting. And but something I will mention though is that all of those gentlemen that were in men's class, particularly in the company the year that I student taught, they have gone on to like study dance. So it's not so much that they wanted to dance, like they're dancers. So maybe there was just something kind of like an anomaly about that time, they
Yeah.
yeah, and
Yes.
I could understand your frustration because once you have a group like that and then you have to kind of start over,
Yeah.
you kind of wonder, I would wonder like what is going on and how do we continue to cultivate this?
Yeah. Yeah. You're right. There was definitely something in their upbringing prior to coming here
Mhm.
that led them to feel safe to walk through the door. And
Mhm.
they walked in, and I mean, you're right. We've got three of them right now are have finished degrees in dance, in performance. I think one of them might be education. So they're getting out there, and they're gonna change the world again, right? With their voice and their impact and being in front of people,
Yeah.
and teaching and normalizing that men can dance. So dance in and of itself, it's its own art, right? So I have to date rejected creating a class that I call Dance for Athletes.
Tell me more about that. Tell me more.
Well, let me tell you, and I love athletes. I love the combination of movement in any format, right? So, like, if I go to a football game, I'll sit and watch. I have no idea what's going on.
Oh,
I
me
really
neither.
don't. I don't know the rules.
I've gone to so many football games I can't even. I don't
Yeah,
know what is going on.
but the movement is fascinating, and the passing of the ball, the running, the jumping over each other,
There's some kind
the
of
diving
choreography
down.
element to it because of the
Yeah,
structure.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So movement, I think, in all its capacities, whether it's a stylized form of a sport or a stylized form of dance, I find all of that interesting. So to me, it's also interesting that they're so segmented and segregated in many ways.
Mhm.
So, as I started the process, I really marketed it to athletes, and I continue to do so. But I also understand that there are some boys who don't want that. They just want to take dance,
Mhm.
and they don't want to. They find it insulting to call it dance for athletes because dance is its own form. We don't have to umbrella it
Right.
under something else.
Right.
So, out of honoring, I thought to myself, well, that's true. We don't call our other classes, dance for athletes. The girls' classes are not dance for athletes. But I have wrestlers and softball players and football players and everything in those dance classes. And I remember one year I had a football player. He was so tall. And I went to the game and I watched him. And he did incredible things. He did things nobody else on the field was doing. And
Yeah.
I saw him leap over this group of people that were diving for his feet. And he leapt over and landed. And afterward, I called him over and I said, I saw what you did. You did that leap thing. That was what we've been practicing that in class. Do you realize how the skills have transferred and you can use them because all you're doing is, working with your instrument, right? Which is your body.
Right.
So we had a good, talk about that. And then I tell that story all the time. Like, man, he was out there, he leapt over people. And, so we can talk about how their knees don't twist as much, right? In basketball because of the training that we do here, lining the knee up over the toe. And
Mhm.
that's one of the biggest injuries you get in
Yeah.
basketball because you're turning on the ball of the foot. So my thought is, I want everybody to be able to see it as an art form, but also as its own athletic ability, right? For the physicality of it. Um,
Right, and it's kind of redundant to say
yeah,
dance for athletes because
yeah,
dance is athletic. So,
Right, right. But that's how, see, we're all desperately trying to pull people in the door.
yes.
So that conversation is out there in the circles of people trying to start a men's class. And you know, and I get it. I mean, I can see why they would choose to call it that, because it gives a safe title to the boys that are going to come into the door but are not ready maybe for the social pressure of doing that. So, and we just need to be clear that dance is for people. There are no regulations.
Mhm.
Dance doesn't make you one way or the other. You are who you are. Come on in and dance. Everybody has the same instrument, and we all can. That we all have a body, and we all can move with it. And I was going to tell you too. I love what you said about the masculine and the feminine. But women do not get railroaded if they're masculine. You
Mhm.
know what I mean? So like if I'm a lifter in a piece, I'm picking people up. That was always my role. I didn't get hammered for it. You
Mhm.
know, the same way that a male who did something that had more emotion or more lightness to it would get hammered for it. You know, he'd start getting called names, and it's totally inappropriate, and it's totally um, just like this archaic thinking. You know, of it's wrong, and people shouldn't be treated that way. So nobody should be afraid to take a class because of how other people are going to treat them. Does that make sense? So I say embrace the masculine, embrace the feminine, everybody, right? Come on in, try it out. All people have feelings. All people have a body that they use as an instrument for dance or for whatever sport they're in.
Mhm.
And we all can connect our body and our mind and our emotions, and put that into movements. So without being pink,
Right.
or have it be ballet, or for somebody to say, well, they're gay.
Mhm.
Gay is not a bad word.
Right.
So we have to educate about that as well. Don't use
Absolutely.
that as a bad word in the classroom. You are who you are. Come in the door. Let's dance. Let's
Mhm.
not focus on those judgments or those considerations.
Yes, right.
Once everybody gets in the door, gay, straight, anything, they all are very accepting of each other. And it's interesting to see them come to that understanding, like, oh yeah, we're all just people.
Mhm.
We all have a lot of similarities. We have some differences, but we have some similarities. Um, but if we don't get in and have that experience, then that can be difficult. So, like you said, we are learning to be more accepting and open of people. And with this being Pride Month, I think it's important that we
Have this
that we
time.
address that.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's important that we acknowledge that we are who we are. Let's embrace it, and let's dance. I said
Right.
it a couple times.
Yes. Well, when you talked about the pizza and donuts, it kind of made me think about this funny little experience I had when I was teaching summer dance camp at the elementary level 2 summers ago when I was pregnant with Zoe,
Okay.
my 19-month-old, if anyone does not know. And so I was the dance teacher at the summer camp, and I was teaching a bunch of young elementary aged boys, and I had to figure out how I was going to get them. First, we were doing kind of like Zumba style, you follow me, I make up a rhythmic pattern, that kind of thing. But then I wanted to do something different, especially with the older kids, and I wanted them to choreograph. And for the girls, it was really easy. And for the boys, they were just not into the way that I was delivering the information, or however I formatted the lessons. So finally I thought, okay, let's choreograph a fight scene. So we talked about like superheroes and the different moves, and I kind of broke it down in that sense. And it turned out to be so cool. And so I love, I just, and going back to how you described like invigorating your teaching practice, it really was kind of a cool way to shake things up and to really think outside the box and to reinvent how you deliver a lesson in a way that is going to meet the student where they are.
Hmm. Hmm. And that's brilliant. That's a brilliant solution, because you're attaching the movement to something that's meaningful that they already kind of have in their cachet.
Right.
So now they're going to start to understand it better because you've given it some kind of anchor.
Yeah.
And then it's less scary, right?
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, but after teaching the boys for a year, I changed everything. My
Hmm.
girls' classes all flipped. I thought, well, if this works for boys, it's going to work for girls, and I rearranged the curriculum. I let go of things that kept us sedentary. I kept us moving. And I was so grateful because I think that was right when that started, it would have been an easy point for me to just get burned out. Teaching is challenging and time consuming and very rewarding, but also very draining.
Hmm.
And so, you kind of hit about 7 years into something and you're like, oh, am I doing the right thing? What
Yeah.
do I change? And so it was perfect. Whoops. Uh,
There's a fly. Sorry.
Something was saying hello. So yeah. So
Yeah.
so again, just made me be a better teacher for everybody, I think.
Yeah, and I love that every time we go to TDEA or something similar, you're always talking about the men's dance program and sharing that information with others because I think people are trying to figure that out on their campuses as well.
Hmm.
I think, collectively we're all trying to figure out how to just make this more accessible to
Hmm.
everyone. And
Yes.
it's difficult because you are dealing with the stigma and the societal pressures and
Hmm.
all of that. But I think a lot of it just kind of starts at home. And it's cool that there are shows that showcase more men dancing now, like So You Think You Can Dance and America's Best Dance Crews to be a thing.
Hmm.
Um, but I really do. I think it really needs to start kind of in their homes, and parents need to teach that it's not just for girls. Um, so it's a hard one to do just from the educational side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So we'll stay open, and encourage. I mean, we drill team has traditionally been an all female activity.
Hmm.
But there are boys who do want to do drill team.
Right.
We
Yeah.
need to be open. We need to have that door open. We need to be able to, provide appropriate opportunities for people who are interested. So these are really important conversations to be having, and at the home, embracing. I mean, I don't think that the other art forms would be as heavily or disproportionately, rejected,
Right.
right? So if someone said, I want to study music, yay, boys and girls can study music.
Yeah.
There's no stigma, not really, not
Well,
as much that I'm
and that's an
aware of.
interesting topic too, because you
Yeah.
have a boy who brings home a flute, and all of a sudden, excuse me, flutes are for girls. It's
Oh,
really interesting.
yeah.
Yeah, but you're right. As a whole,
As
you're
a
not
whole,
getting bashed because you want to be in band because you are a girl or boy.
right.
Theater,
Theater.
like visual art. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So that and again, some of it just comes with maturity and experience, right? And seeing those things happen over and over again. The TV shows haven't hurt. For the most part, just having more role models out there, I think is not a bad thing. And hopefully we can continue as a dance community to discuss that and to
Mhm.
stop some of the trends that are happening and continue as a society to become accepting and educated, on the topic. There's a lot of research. I've been reading a lot of research on men in dance, and it all kind of says the same thing. They need strong supporters. They need people who are going to be there for them.
Mhm.
Um, and I'm amazed at how many boys don't get that support from their families. So when they take class, their parents are like, "Ooh, hey, I'm going to try it for the company." Ooh, ooh, what? Let it's something that they're interested in doing. It's funny how they immediately kind of categorize that as a problem.
Yeah.
So boys need strong role models and people that are going to support them. And if they have that, they can usually make it through. they
Yes.
can make it through. So,
Yeah,
so
I
we
think you just need to
have that.
take their whole group of friends and just do it together.
Yeah, yeah. And it's funny because I can remember one group of boys I had their senior years before men's class. They were all in orchestra.
Mhm.
And they said, you know what? We're just going to take dance. And so I think it was 5 or 6 of them all took dance and they all got in the same period. And when they were done, they said, we should have done this sooner. They
Mhm.
loved it. They loved it. And they didn't, they were able to handle that collectively and it didn't bother them.
Right.
Some of those stigmas. And once they were there, we're like, why didn't I start sooner?
Mhm.
So again, just sort of continuing to educate. Don't you feel like that's what we do as dance educators?
Mhm.
Just with the longevity of my career, I feel like I am tackling some of the same issues that I tackled way back when I first started.
Yeah.
Same issues, same audience etiquette issues, same,
Oh, yeah.
like, wow, okay, let me put some rules in here just about how we would behave in an audience. And so culturally and societally, we haven't addressed those things, and we should be. We should be addressing them. So, okay, if this is the first time, we'll start here.
How we do it. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So we don't have a ton of time left, but I do want
Okay,
time. I mean, I can talk to you for as long as you are available. Um,
sure.
but um, I would love to touch on this is completely separate from Man's Dance, but you take your dance company to the National High School Dance Festival every
Do.
other year.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
can you tell me why you do that, why that, and what your process is to get them ready for it, what they experience when they get there, what that whole thing is like? Because I don't hear enough people talking about that trip.
Well, and not many schools from Texas go.
Right.
It's a small group from Texas. Booker T goes, and the Performing Arts High School in Fort Worth goes.
Okay.
And then there are a smattering of others that do go, which is great. But the concept of it started, a while back, where they wanted to bring together again. And I was actually at the first one. I was teaching in Phoenix
Neat.
and I got to go to it when it was first established. So it's been interesting to watch it grow. But the concept of bringing together and creating a greater community of dancers, letting them see what's outside of the walls of their community here. So we have our school, we have things that happen here, but they're different than what happens at other schools.
Right.
So the only way to expose them, even just to their neighborhood schools, is to do something together. Okay. So we try to, connect students in that way and do what we can do to show them that they're part of a greater community, even here locally.
Mhm.
And then, there are other things that we try to do. We go to, regional activities that involve dance if we can find them. But, they're kind of hard to find. Tennessee has a state dance festival. We've done that a couple of times. But the national, I mean, it's just a melting pot, right? They go and they see the possibilities. They see what other kids their age are doing. They see choreography from viewpoints all over the world. And it's a growing experience like no other. So after we've gone, and if they're the big fish here, they're at the top, right? Because they've auditioned for varsity. It's always good to go and go, oh my gosh, there's so much more. There's so much more that I can learn, and keep them hungry for that growth mindset. Like, oh, I'm doing really well, but I can do more, and I can learn more, and there's more for me. So just the experience of going, taking their dance family here and going where there are groups from all over the United States. They've had a group from Singapore. There's a group from Australia that comes every year. There's groups from Canada. So it's international, right, in a lot of ways, and to see what they're doing and to see what the trends are. Like sometimes you'll go and there'll be a whole plethora of historical dances that have been reset. and you're like, wow, everybody's exploring, this,
Yeah.
and then one year there was a whole bunch of Battle Works pieces, from
Yeah.
Robert Battle.
Right.
And so seeing some of that, getting to know that community, making connections, getting to know people in other places that they might connect with in the future,
Mhm.
sharing that information, standing in a classroom and going, okay, everybody is like me in that they love dance. And how are they pushing themselves, and how can I push myself? And finding that balance, that healthy balance, I can grow rather than, oh, I'm not good enough. So taking that part of it out of the equation and going, let's push ourselves. What can we do? So we go and we learn. We are one of the few regular high schools that go. So most that are there are, in fact, performing arts high schools.
Right.
So, we oftentimes our dancers don't have that level of technical ability, but I still want to go anyway, and I want to take them because I want them to again to see what the possibilities are, and to go, those kids are in high school, look at what they're doing. And then when they come back, they have that worldly experience that they then share with our department and our community here, um, through their work, through their choreography. And then other people are seeing that, so we're enriching the community with a deeper understanding of themselves and the dance community, and how dance can um, manifest emotions, feelings, thoughts, ideas, or joy, just movement for movement's sake, to be joyful. Um, the National High School Dance Festival is for public high school dance programs. So it is not supposed to be for drill team.
Mm.
So it gives moving grounds an identity, right? This is their thing. They are the company to represent the department in that way.
Right.
And so they go and they have their own identity there. Now, there's always some works that get in that appear to be maybe drill team based, maybe competitive based. And I can explain that more here in a moment. But most of the work that we see is mind blowing,
Mm.
and artistic in the sense that it wasn't created with tricks in mind or specific skill sets to show off something. Now in ballet, that's completely the norm, right? So a ballerina can do 20 pirouettes. That's an applaudable moment. That is a measure of their skill. And but in other forms, you don't see that as much, right? um, it depends on what it is. But I don't want my dancers to walk away from dance thinking that the only way that they're good is if they can do a certain set of tricks.
Mhm.
So we step away from that. So and oftentimes if someone brings something that is a trend or a trick, we'll stop and talk about it and say, okay, so why do you want that here? It feels extraneous, feels like it doesn't fit. Can you tell me how it does fit? What were you thinking? And
Mhm.
so then we start to connect and talk and dialogue about those things. But they see other kids doing, these amazing works that, I mean, we just sit there and go, oh my,
I want to go sometime. Maybe you can
yeah,
pack me in your suitcase the next time you
okay,
guys.
okay.
Probably small enough by then.
We went right before COVID. I
In,
mean, it was February of
oh, this in 2020?
2019.
Okay.
And when we came back, is that right? No, it was 2020. Let me get that right. So we went in February of 2020.
Right before everything was shut down.
Yes. And I bought masks and we all took a mask. And I said, we're hearing these, things are starting to come. If you're nervous about your kids traveling, we'll all have a mask. We carried them with us everywhere. We didn't wear them.
Mhm.
But then everything shut down about 3 weeks later.
Yeah. Oh my
I
God.
mean, it was a miracle that we went.
Wow. When do you get to go again?
We should go in 2022.
Okay, awesome. So this coming school year or the next one?
Yes, this
Okay,
coming school year.
very
Yes.
cool. And about how much does it cost to send students to, after planes and hotels? How much does it cost to send your students to this on this trip?
A lot.
Yeah.
It costs a lot. It's not cheap because you're talking, whatever you can get for group airfare. So let's say 400 for group airfare. You've got hotel rooms, that you're dividing out, hopefully at a festival rate. You've got the festival itself that you pay for. So there's an entry fee and, certain fees that you pay per student. So I would say that it can cost anywhere from 800 on a cheap day to 1,000 per student.
Mm,
And so it's definitely an expense.
right.
We try to work off as much of it as possible. So that's where the fundraisers come in, and I encourage the dancers to talk about what the money is for. That it's about all of them going as a company to the National High School Dance Festival.
Right.
And we usually do very well. The kids are motivated, so we, are able to offset a lot of those costs. So depends. The parents know that they're responsible for whatever we don't earn. And so
Mhm.
that helps them to become invested in the sales of it. Like, okay, so we're doing, this fundraiser. Let me take it to work and just see if I can help. Um, but I like the idea of my students working for it. They
Yeah.
shouldn't be to them. They need to work for it so they have an appreciation of going,
Hmm.
and so that they're happy for every moment that we're there, and it's special for them, right? They're grateful for it, versus that it's just, that's normal. We always go to festivals where there are thousands of people from all over the country. It's like, nope.
There's equity in it.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly,
Not
exactly.
just on the stage, but also in the wallet.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly, that little investment, yeah.
So are
And
they
if they
guaranteed? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, that's okay. Well, and there are a couple of items they have to buy to be in company, like a jacket and a shirt.
Uh-huh.
And so you know what? I'm not going to have that money, Mrs. Eddings. Okay. So what are you going to do this summer? You're
Mhm.
going to babysit? You're going to mow some lawns? You going to, like what? How can you contribute to it? This isn't your mom and dad's responsibility.
Right.
This is yours, and this
There
is
are
for
kids I know
you.
that are
So
detailing cars and making chocolate covered strawberries and putting them on
yes,
Instagram. I'm like,
right,
great kids.
right.
That's
That's right. Yeah, let's be creative. Let's be creative in how you can help to earn this money. And maybe you won't earn it all, but if you go to your family and say, "Hey, I need 50 more dollars. I've earned this much." That's a whole lot better than the full amount.
mhm.
So giving them that level of responsibility and buy-in, I think is important.
Yes. Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. I am curious, so does everyone who participates in the festival have a chance to perform on stage? Is it just certain works that get picked? What does that look like?
They have 6 concerts.
Okay.
2 are gala,
Mhm.
2 are showcase, and 2 are informal.
Mhm.
And they've tried to expand where they can, but you can submit works for adjudication up to 5. It's very stiff competition.
Yeah.
We have gotten works in, and just been so grateful, so honored to have been selected, again, because we're not dancing 6 hours a day like some of these kids are. So and I'm also not paying choreographers. I'm not buying
Right.
works from Robert Battle, to come in and have them set on my dancers. We don't have the budget for that. So we submit a lot of, what we would consider to be really solid student choreography pieces that represent the skill level of the dancers appropriately. Um, they have to be extraordinarily clean. So if you submit something with a lot of errors, you can just count that it's not going to be selected.
Right.
Um, the adjudication process is brutal. I've sat through some of those where I've called and said, "Hey, can you give me can you give me some of the notes so that I can go back and work with the dancers?" And some of the notes were simply, things that I couldn't change. My dancers are doing the best they can do. But there were things that we have used over time to grow. So again, it's just a growth experience, but we don't get something in every year, and that's okay. We will try our best with everything that's out there. And there are pieces I've submitted where I'm like, oh, I'm sure that's going to get in. It's so good. And it
Mhm.
doesn't, you know. And there are pieces where I'm like, I really like this and I wonder. So that there is that subjective, the judges are looking at hundreds of hundreds of pieces and putting those in a category and scoring them according to their rubric. It is supposed to be a blind adjudication, so they should not know who the schools are. So sometimes, not all the time, and I don't know if this, my students and I have discussed how occasionally we'll sit through a show where a lot of the dances look the same.
Yeah.
Oh, it's the same dance, just in a different costume.
Mhm.
And so I can appreciate that's a really difficult job, to select from so many into smaller. But they do an amazing job with one of the showcase concerts. So it's leveled, right? Informal is kind of your bronze medal. The showcases are your silver, and then the galas are your gold medals. Okay.
I see.
Um, so they have a showcase that is a student choreography show. And so only student choreography can get into that one. And then they adjudicate that evening when they perform, and one of them goes into the gala the next night.
Oh,
It's cool. It's
wow.
really so there's a lot of variety in those informals. Love those informals. We go sit watch all the informals because they're very eclectic,
Mhm.
lots of voices in there. And then the showcase will have a similar feel,
Mhm.
similar tone. There'll be some that stand out and that are different that you'll really remember. And then the gala will be like, oh my gosh, are those really high school kids?
Yeah.
Just incredible. You'll see incredible works, and oftentimes by really big name choreographers and things like
Mhm.
that. But you know what? We learn something at every show. I sit with my little notebook and take notes and like, what do I see? What's going on here? What are they saying? What's happening with kids across the United States and across, in other countries? And it's fascinating. It's fascinating. So it gives me ideas as a teacher too, to come back and go, I was really inspired by this. What did you see? And
Right.
have a lot of good discussion about that kind of stuff.
And
So
I
yeah.
imagine during the day before the shows happen, this is just me imagining, I have no
Mhm.
idea. The students are probably taking class and things like that.
Yes.
Or do they offer classes for the educators as well? What does that look like?
Not so much for the teachers. There
Okay.
were a couple of teacher tables, teacher forums in the past where we could all sit down and talk. But we're busy. We're running all over and making sure students know where to go because it's usually at a university campus.
Okay.
So they're in classes. They're in a certain pocket of classes. It's gotten better in terms of like making sure your kids can get into classes. If I take 16 students, I don't want one over here,
Oh, yeah.
and then like 8 here, and then like so there has to be some kind of way to organize your students in the classes and where they are.
Mm.
So it's a big festival, and there are those considerations. So we talk a lot about that with the families. Like there will be times when they have to walk, and I won't be standing next to them, but that we always want them to walk with someone else. So we coordinate those schedules as best as we can, but they offer everything. They offer, some beginning classes, but they're not beginning, they'll push you.
Yeah.
Intermediate, advanced, we've got ballet, we've got repertoire classes, we've got hip hop classes, African, pretty much everything.
Mhm.
Pilates and yoga. And so we sleep very little on the trip. We are up early, we are up late. Um, and we just let everybody know that we're going to come home exhausted, because we want to take as many classes as we can when we go and dance the whole day and see every concert, and they can make friends later.
How
you know
often do these kids fall asleep in those concerts at the
they
end of the
do,
day of
they
dancing?
do, they're sitting there like this and I'm like,
Yeah.
woo.
Yeah.
But they, what, they do their best. They really do. And it's not just our kids that are asleep, but you can kind of look around and everybody's
It's
really
dark,
tired.
it's
It's
cold, you
dark.
can
Yeah. The
I
music's loud.
I think I would be fighting to stay awake myself.
Yeah, yeah. But it's, that selected number of days. And so the experience is, their classes are one in, 50, one in 100 for those larger
Mhm.
ones.
Mhm.
I've taught a couple when I was there. It was a blast. But, it's a ton of kids. It's
Yeah.
hard. Whew, it's like, come on, everybody, let's go, and we're do the best we can in the space we have. And it's fun and powerful because it's all that passion in one room.
Mhm.
Um, so conversely, I would love to take my students to a regional festival every other year. So they do a regional and then a national and then a regional and then a national.
Mhm.
But we don't have a Southern Regional Festival.
Mhm.
So if I take them, it will be in a Northern Regional Festival. So we were supposed to do that this year before COVID.
Hmm.
So we haven't had that experience yet. Um, but they just grow. The growth is crazy. You come back and they're all wide-eyed, like my world has just shifted and changed after what I saw.
Yeah.
It's a changing experience, and those are hard to package up. So
It's well worth $1,000.
yeah, it is
Yeah, I mean,
worth.
there's so much into it. It's so much more than the classes too. It's like being away from home and being with your like
Yes.
family, but also like the challenge of pushing yourself through back-to-back dance classes and
Yeah.
meeting people. And then even some of those guys that were in that company the year that I was student teaching, I think they ended up going to that university. And so it's cool in that way too, where they kind of get
Yeah.
scouted out, or I don't know how that worked actually, but very cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And it happened. I had one that went there prior to them, and she was picked up in an audition at the National.
Wow.
And so they were like, okay, we need you. And so she then ushered in the other two boys. They all ended up at the same place. And she, when she lived there while they were there, so she could sort of mentor them, and they had somebody there.
Awesome. So
So
cool.
see it, that's now they're all connected. So they'll be able to use each other, as resources for the things that they want to do. So
I'd love to chat with them about that whole experience. Just not, well, it's cool to have this conversation with you from the teacher's perspective, but I would love
yeah.
to chat with them and number one, catch up because they were such a fun group of kids. Um,
Yeah.
two, just to see what this story is like from the other side, being in company and going to the festival and going to that university. So
Mm-hmm.
cool. It's really cool. And I bet you feel so good as their teacher too, just to kind of see what you played a part in.
It was fun to help them open that door,
Yeah.
like to realize what it was. I mean, it's all their work, right?
Mhm.
Um, well, yeah, and I would throw out a piece of advice to teachers at this juncture. I'll just share one piece with you that I found interesting. It's okay to take risks and to try some things in the classroom that you're not sure they're going to work. With that particular group, I did a chance dance. So we talked about Merce Cunningham and his strategies. And so I said, let's do this. And we did a chance dance, and we did the whole process together. And when the two boys, the two most recent that you're familiar with, when they went to college, they told me later, they said, well, Mrs. Eddings, we did chance dance and we were the only ones who knew what it was.
Oh, wow.
I said, what? Really? Because I just thought, I thought surely other people are talking about and doing those things. But they said we were the only ones. We knew what to do. We kind of understood the process, and we were the only two. And so I was like, yes. So that part of the educator of like going, okay, my kids are not dancing 6 hours a day. It's an hour and a half.
Mhm.
And if they start here as a freshman and I've got to get them to a certain point, I have to push.
Right.
And what don't I need? Get rid of those things.
Mhm.
Keep the things that are going to really help those kids to grow.
Mhm.
So consequently, I don't do a lot of worksheets. Worksheets are gone. Okay, you remember that.
Mhm.
Um, We teach vocabulary when we're up and moving. We spend the time moving and problem solving with movement. And so I try to base everything around that, so that they can take that, because if they don't move enough here, they're not ready. Even little things like when I take them to college dance day, or one of the smaller, community college dance days, um, there are some things, that I'm like, whoa, okay, so we need to talk about undercurve. Okay, so we need to talk about, so I keep pulling those concepts and working them in, and I keep that stuff in there. And then I go, oh, I tried this, and really this isn't relevant. This isn't helping them. So get rid of it, do
Mhm,
something else that's new.
mhm.
So I think that's important. You have to be able to, I observe those classes as much, write down what they're doing, in the audition warm up. I'm like, oh my gosh, I haven't done that with them. So it gives me another step. Okay, yes, I can pull that. I can tailor that for my students and give them something they can use. So we got to bridge that gap so that they can go to college. And it's 4 years is not a lot of time to do that, but if we can give them the survival skills,
Mhm.
then they can fill in the rest as they go.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah.
That's really, I mean, you have to get creative, and at the end of the day, you just got to work with the cards that you're dealt with. And I think I mean, as far as I can tell, you're doing a really great job, and that's really cool.
Thank you. You're so sweet. Well, it was great to have you here. And it's, we love to have student teachers here to come in and kind of see what the program is, because then we're listening to what you're learning,
Mhm.
what you get from college, and what steps you've completed, and what are the next ones that you're going to need. So we try to bridge a gap there too, because the world needs really good dance teachers in public school.
Yeah.
That's my feeling. And I know not everybody will go in to teach public school, and you found the perfect niche, to go in and do leadership within a dance environment. And those are life skills that they're going to be able to use everywhere. But so powerful and so exciting. Um, but having college students here, I think that's why we always say yes. Like, hey, they want to come here? Yes, because we're going to learn from them, and they're going to learn from us, and hopefully, we'll just continue to add to
Mhm.
that magical learning sphere.
Yeah, I know I got a lot out of it. So I'm glad that it was mutually beneficial in some way. I really did enjoy my couple months of student teaching there. It was so cool. Especially because I didn't grow up in a dance department. I grew up a color guard kid. So
Yeah.
I went on to college and I studied dance, and to see how to run a dance program was so
Mhm.
fun because it's really putting the two things that I love together, which is
Yeah.
dance slash color guard and education. So
Yeah.
I'm I'm so excited to kind of see what the next chapter is. There something on the horizon for you? Do you have anything planned, or I mean,
Well,
that was
so
a curveball.
that's a good question. So I want to stay in the classroom as long as I can, as
Mhm,
long as my body will hold out and I can give relevant information in here.
mhm,
So I'm going to push myself in that way. But I would like to do some continual work with dance education. So
mhm.
I foresee myself at some point writing a book,
Yeah.
doing some, and those are all things that have been cooking, like, okay, now I need to get this information out,
Right.
but something immediately usable. So whether it's digital or whether it's paper, I think those are all things to be looked at. But I have lessons that I've been teaching, and changing and growing for a long time.
Mhm, mhm.
And so, to look at how movement has changed over time, to look at how the movement education has changed over time, and to look at what things are basic principles that everybody has to have and that you can't ignore, and kind of organizing that information into a way that I could go, you know what, I did this for a long time, so let me give it to you, and
Mm.
now you can take it, and you've got some ready-made stuff so that you can use it, and then you can add your layers and you can do your thing with it. So um, so that dance education as a whole is solid everywhere,
Yeah.
wherever, no matter where you go to school, you're going to get a teacher who is going to teach you about dance education. You're going to learn all the different forms. And then if you want to specialize in something in color guard and drill team in a company, you can have those experiences too. Um, so I think something with education specifically, and how to have a program within a public school, I mean, that really is its own animal, right?
Yeah.
Public school has its own set of rules and culture and climate. So how do you run a program, within a school? I think I've got some information that I could share that might make that easier for some, because I sure didn't have it when I started, and
Right.
I learned a lot trial by fire.
Mm.
And a lot of those first students that I had, boy, I'd love to go back and say, I'm so sorry. I, I'm so sorry. That experience is different now, but you have to start somewhere, and you have to learn and grow, and you have to push yourself, um, and think about what's best for your students. And
I
that's what
agree.
I do every day.
Well, if I may,
Yeah.
I think I would love to pick up a copy of your book once it gets written.
Okay.
Decide I don't have time, I don't have energy, I need to hurry up and get this information out now. You should do a podcast. Just sit down,
Oh, okay.
sit down with a microphone. It's as easy as plugging in your headphones because they have a mic in it already. Record it, and then you
Mhm.
have information, and you could charge for it if you wanted. You could make it for free. That's really up to you. But I think that would be the easiest way to get information out there. But a book would be also so, so exciting.
Ah, thank you. That's a great idea. Yeah, I need to, and it's good for me to think outside of traditional ways, right? What are new ways that we can get the information out there that makes sense, that people are going to have access to?
Right.
Because sometimes there's just not enough time to
Mhm.
read a book, you
Right.
know? So you need the information, you need to be able to pull it and use it. Um, and have it be relevant, right? Sometimes, like a lot of the books that I have on my shelf, they sit on my shelf and they look good, but I don't read them. I pull them out when I just need a piece of information, right?
Right.
So what would really work, something that you could just, I don't know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
all of that delicious detailing is being formulated, so that's a great idea about podcasts. I really like that.
You should look into it.
Okay.
You have so much you could share, and it would really help not just like up and coming dance educators, but I think, our community as a whole, we have so much to learn from each other. And
Yeah,
yeah, you could do it in the car on your way home while you're there.
that's true.
Like you can literally do it anywhere. You're just sitting down, you press record, you talk, and then you stop. And there's minimal editing involved.
Hmm.
But I just thought I'd plant
Good.
that seed and do with it what you will.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, it's planted.
Well, thank you so, so much for taking the time to chat with me. And I can't wait to uh, put this out there for everyone to see and hear however they consume this material.
Yeah, thank you. And, I wanted to say thank you too for the opportunity that you gave to my students to learn about leadership and to think about their leadership skills and what strengths they have and how those manifest in different ways. And how it was something that I think was a big growth day for them. We had talked about having those growth days. Yeah. And so we are really excited to have you come back and help them on this journey, as they start to deal with things in real time.
Mm.
So I love what you're doing. And it was an honor to sit here and talk with you today. And I'm very excited to bring you in and have you work with our students again.
Yeah,
And all of them, all of them. So we're going to have you work with all of our varsity companies leadership. So
I'm so excited. I cannot wait. I love, 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 love talking about leadership. And it's just, I love that I'm so thankful that I found kind of like a new path to go down within
yeah,
dance education in
yes,
kindergarten. But I'm excited. Yay.
yeah. So thank you so much. I'm really honored that you asked me today.
Yes. Well, again, you're wonderful, and I'm sure people are going to take out a lot from this conversation. And if people want to reach out to you and ask questions, I don't, do you have a website? Where can people find you?
Yeah, well, I teach at Creekview High School, so that's in Carrollton Farmers Branch, and I can be reached here anytime. I don't have like an individual website necessarily, but I have websites like for the school,
Hmm.
for the companies here. So I have a lot of examples and things that I would be love to share and be willing to talk about with others. So, if anybody wants to reach out, just reach out here to me at Creekview, and I will be
Send her
happy
an edible arrangements.
to send me a little arrangement with your information on it.
Respond to you faster that way.
I love it. Yeah, but certainly, and if they contact you, then feel free to pass their information on to me as well.
Awesome. All right,
Yeah.
everybody. Thanks for tuning in and stay tuned for our next episode. Goodbye, audience.
Goodbye, audience.